Now we're going to go through our Q1 2024 dashboard. We organize our priorities in quarters based on the EOS system. So for those of you that have read Traction, we replicate that model. So every quarter we have what are called rocks, which are key areas of focus or emphasis. And we create an issues list on what's preventing us from accomplishing that. And then those become our big levers that we're pulling each quarter. So what are our Q1 dashboard rocks, Cory?
When we're looking at this, we basically start at the top. So we say, what's the revenue goal that we're trying to achieve? And then what do we need to do to get there? And so we break it down piece by piece in the business. And for our wholesaling business, that's really, again, revenue at the top, driven by average deal size. You only get that by getting a certain number of contracts. And then one leading metric for us that we're really focusing on is the number or the percentage of the inbound leads that come in. So these are pay-per-click, website, could be any type of marketing where somebody is reaching out directly to us. How many of those are getting converted to an appointment? And we're tracking number of appointments attended, number of appointments set. And those are really the big metrics and the drivers for our business.
Yeah, so think about this, guys, as a big funnel, right? A big pyramid. At the top of the pyramid, you have all your leads. Or I guess for us, it would be dials or conversations, right? Mm-hmm. Then the next layer, we have appointments set. The next layer, we have contracts signed. The next layer, we have deals closed. And then the final bucket is, or the bottom of the pyramid is essentially, or the top of the pyramid. Anyways.
Depends on whether it's a funnel or a pyramid.
Exactly. The bottom of the funnel is total revenue produced, right? So whenever we're having problems, we can track it at any point in that funnel and see, are we not setting enough appointments? Are we not getting enough leads? Were the contracts that we signed complete garbage, right? So that's why we track this stuff in a very simple, easy to see dashboard. What's the first rock that we have, first area of focus for Q1?
Yeah, for us, after revenue is average deal size.
Okay.
And so in Q4 and Q1, basically the second half of 2023, what we were looking at is an average deal size of just over 24,000. And so for us, one of the key targets to increasing our revenue goal is increasing that average deal size. You can put a lot of contracts on the board, but if you get a bigger deal size, it's definitely going to drive the profitability of the business. And so our goal for that is 27,000 in Q1.
Yeah, and for our market, I think that that's a pretty fair number. I don't even think that that's overly aggressive. Obviously, for those listening, like generally speaking, the larger your market, the more populated it is, the harder it's going to be to get a deal, the more competitive it's going to be, but the bigger the deal size. So like your Miami, your LA, your San Diego, Seattle, these areas that have high price points and higher competition, it's very common to get a 50K, 60K average deal size, right? So for Boise, we're just around 1 million people MSA. So how are we doing on that metric?
Well, the last couple that closed brought it down. We're running right at 20,000 right now.
Okay. And this is the cardinal sin that I see with a lot of beginner wholesalers is not only beginner wholesalers, we've been caught in this trap before, right? Mm-hmm. Where maybe we don't have a big deal on the board that's closing, and so we start to get a little nervous, right? And so when we get a little bit nervous about, hey, we don't have any deals closing, all of a sudden now we're okay taking that 5K deal or looking for that 10K itty-bitty deal, even though those ironically tend to be the ones that need the most amount of effort and work to get them across the finish line.
And that comes back not only at the organizational level, but down to the individual. If it's been a bit and you're in a dry spell from getting contracts, you're looking for that dopamine hit. You're looking for the success of, okay, I got to get back on track. I mean, to use like a baseball analogy, it's like you don't have to hit a home run. You just need a single, and then that'll start you again. And so sometimes people see that, and they'll be like, oh, I just need the win. And they don't view the win as, great, I went on the appointment, and I got to the truth. They view the win as, did I come out with paper? And if I didn't come out with a signed contract, I failed. And so it's on us to make sure that we're encouraging the right behaviors and then underwriting appropriately.
Yeah, 100%. And as leaders, I cannot emphasize the importance of that because it is so easy. Really what you're talking about is getting that satisfaction and gratification in the moment at the expense of your future. That's really what you're doing, right? Because if you're spending time, effort, and energy closing a 5K deal, then all of a sudden you're not applying that time towards finding a 50K deal. That's what you can't measure is that opportunity cost.
And Todd Toback talks a lot about that in his podcast, and it is absolutely true. Whenever we reset, and it is a mindset shift of what is the goal? Is the goal just to put pen to paper because it feels good, or is the goal to make money? Is the goal to be able to really serve people who we can provide a value to, or again, just to say, great, I had the highest volume?
Love it. What else we got?
After that, we look at the total number of contracts, and we break this down by where we got our lead source from. That way we know where we can put our marketing budget back into.
How are we doing on that?
If we look at December, we were at 15 contracts. We were at 16 in January, had a little bit of a drop-off in February down to 14, and then we've had a few so far in March.
That's pretty consistent, though.
Yeah, that was probably the 3 most consistent months being in double digits that we've had.
Wow. Okay. So something's working.
A lot of changes over the last year.
Well,
to get to that point.
Let's take a moment to reflect then. Where were we at a year ago?
Yeah.
Like 5 or 6? Maybe a little bit more. It was harder to close a contract back then.
Yeah, if we look where we were at in Q1 of 2023. So Q2, Q3 of 2022, interest rates double.
Yep.
You don't see it reflected in the median sale price yet because everything just starts sitting on the market. So then in the latter half of 2022, we see a big correction, over 20% in our market. And then we're just starting to come back out of that, starting to bottom in January, February. So you start to see a little bit of traction. But at that point, we had completely upended. Expectations with sellers were so far off. We were starting to do novations at that time. And January might have been 2, 3, 4. And then we started to pick up an extra 1 to 2 each month as we progressed through the year.
Right. So definitely not an apples to apples comparison. There were a lot of macro stuff going on because there was never a bigger delta between what the sellers wanted and what the market could pay them because we were going through that sharp correction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And to say also, we were not doing the appropriate things. We had a smaller team. We had less training. We were trying to understand, how do we modify our business? How do we underwrite deals when we are seeing a 2% per month decline?
Right.
Boy, that's huge.
Yeah, that's a difficult environment to even estimate or forecast. Like if you're going down 2% a month, good grief. You got to price like another 10% risk factor whenever you're getting something under contract, even if it's a fast close.
Mm-hmm. Which means we really had to focus on the need to sells during that period of time.
Right.
And that's probably one of the biggest changes is we focus on the need to sells, and it goes back to the small versus the bigger deals that we're talking about now, where in March of 2024, we're looking at low inventory. We're looking at a stabilized interest rate for the last 18 months. And you put those two factors together and you start to see the pressure for market appreciation. And so then it allows us to feel more confident about taking on novations in a more stable market environment.
Yeah, 100%. We don't care if the market's going up, down, or sideways, but if it's going down, it makes it extremely difficult to operate, right? The rate of change is what makes it difficult to operate in. So it doesn't matter like if things are going up 20% a year or even just staying at 0% the whole time, right? We need a point of stability to be able to gauge on what these properties are worth and comps and everything that goes along with it.
Yeah. And so then that goes into the contract piece. And again, we're tracking that by bucket. And then we look at the leading indicator. And one big area that we were falling short on a year ago was, how do we handle inbound leads? What's our level of urgency? We're transitioning from being an outbound company, primarily text, cold call. So you've got to disqualify more than you have to qualify to change the mindset, which took a while, of if an inbound lead comes in, it's an automatic appointment. What's the level of urgency we're taking? How many times are we calling each day? Not how many times am I calling each week?
Right. Let's talk about our contracts by lead source real quick.
Mm-hmm.
So far, at the time we're filming this, we're a week into March.
Mm-hmm.
So we have 31 signed contracts so far this year. So we're basically on pace to do about 40 to 45, probably around 40 contracts in the first 3 months of the year. What have been our biggest sources of contracts?
At this time, it's our pay-per lead source. So we're sitting at 14 contracts from that. And then pretty close second between outbound text and outbound call. Again, this would be generally our VAs doing cold calling, or our VAs doing cold outbound text messages to gauge interest in selling a property.
Yep. Okay. And then it looks like we've got a couple referral contracts. Those are the best kind because they're free. One web SEO and then one foreclosure auction contract. Right on. How do we feel like we're doing?
Lots of room to improve still, and a lot better than it was last year.
Yeah. How many deals a month do you think we lose?
Just because we're not taking the appropriate levels of action?
Well, I'm thinking about somebody listening to this, right? And they're probably thinking, holy crap, 15 contracts a month. Because I remember when I was starting out and I'm like, I can't even fathom doing 3 to 5 contracts a month, let alone 15 contracts a month. So how in the world when you say that we've come a long way, but we have stuff to improve on, that mindset shift of really where I'm going with this is I hear this all the time. My market's too saturated. My market's too competitive. And you would think Boise's like 1 million people. It's not a huge market at all. It's not even a large mid-size market, right? 15 contracts a month. You guys must be hitting a ceiling, right? There's not, maybe you can get to 20 contracts a month, but then you're going to have to add another market or go somewhere else to get more contracts.
And we thought like that too.
Yeah.
It must be the market's problem.
Yes, we blame the market. Yeah, 100%.
It's not. No, it's an us problem. And when we look at that, we really focus on a couple of things and why we say, yes, there is opportunities. We just look around at the other wholesalers and say, okay, well, how many of those were even in our database? Start with, if they were in our database, how come we didn't get them? Did we go on an appointment with them? Did we not have the skill sets to close at the time? Did we not take the appropriate levels of action? And so I could easily point back every single month and say, well, there's at least 10 that were in our database that went somewhere else.
That we know about.
That either went and listed with a realtor because we didn't pitch the novation right, that we didn't take the appropriate levels of action, maybe they went with another wholesaler, that we maybe just didn't even get in contact with.
Yeah.
That came into our system and they've been sitting there and we just never even reached out to them.
I think that's so important to highlight is like it's 10 a month that we know about.
Mm-hmm.
I would be willing to bet we only know about 10% of everything. And that's the crazy part is like now that we actually have a CRM like Salesforce, which is a beast and can measure and track all this stuff, man, the sky's the limit. And this is where it's really important too. If you're not in a high level mastermind with people that are doing more deals than you would never even think that this is possible. That's why companies like Integrity First Home Buyers, Eric Brewer and Ben Mont's team in York, Pennsylvania, they're doing over 400, probably over 500 deals a year now in a small and rural Pennsylvania. I think there's Amish people still there. They don't even use electricity. So
how do they find their ads? They mail a postcard back.
But my point is it's a mindset issue.
It is a mindset issue.
It's your own limiting belief. How about let's look at inbound lead to appointments because this is a big one where we've shown really good improvement that we're doing well on.
Right. And this takes a lot of effort. And I want to start with that. It's an effort thing because it's an urgency thing. The moment this comes in, you have to be willing to call that person, to email that person, to text that person, and then do it again, and then do it again, and then do it again. So right now, we're at 48% of our inbound leads that come in, we set an appointment with, which our target was 40. And there's a reason that we've got 14 of those contracts from this lead source so far. And it's because we're taking action and urgency there.
Yeah, I think this is such a big one, right? Like, inbound leads are your most motivated sellers, but they're expensive. And if you are not above that 40% threshold of at least 4 out of 10 inbound leads that come in, you're setting an appointment with, you're going to be losing money. Or you're going to be maybe breaking even / getting a little bit of an ROI, but it's not going to be a scalable thing. So that's why it's so important. You really have to test. The answer is not a new shiny marketing channel. What can your operation do? With what you have, are you set up for success when inbound leads come in? Because if they come in and you can't set appointments, you don't have the skill, you don't have the operation, you don't have the systems in place, you're just going to be wasting money. I see that all the time.
You have coaching students that do that. It's very easy to push the play button.
Yes.
And not know what to do with it once it comes in.
Yeah.
Because you don't have the skill sets yet.
Absolutely. That's why I think we've done a really good job here in focusing on the systems, the people, the skills first before turning up that marketing dial big time. Because up until this quarter, really, we were, 80% outbound leads?
Contracts. Yeah.
And contracts?
Oh, yeah.
So now we're probably about maybe 60-40 outbound in terms of total lead volume, which you're going to have more outbound leads versus inbound leads, but still, I think this is showing us, right, and this is why data drives decision-making, that we can handle more outbound leads right now. This is the metric that shows us if we spend more, we will get more appointments and we will get the ROI to justify it.
Absolutely.
How about next?
Next, we look at two things, which are the number of appointments attended and then the number of appointments set. And so these are the leading indicators. Are we doing the appropriate level of action and having quality conversations on the phones to schedule appointments? And then how many of those did we do a good job of doing a tie down, presenting urgency and scarcity to get it within 48 hours, and then attending? And so this is an area that we really need to improve on because we're doing well on our appointments set. We're on pace to reach our quarterly targets. We're off pace on our appointments attended, which means we have a high cancellation rate.
Right. So this is just the appointment cancellation rate.
Mm-hmm.
We suck at this.
We need a lot of work.
What are we at right now, roughly?
61% of our appointments are attended from appointments we set. So that means we're canceling 39%. We're not able to attend 39% of the appointments.
That's brutal. So if we just did some quick math, we have 268 appointments set so far this quarter, 161 attended.
Mm-hmm.
Our target's 80%, right? So only 20% of our appointments are getting canceled. Only one out of every 5 are getting canceled. 4 out of 5, we are meeting with the seller, right? Either virtual or in person. That's important to distinguish because we do both virtual and in-person appointments. So right now we're essentially 20% under target. We're at 61% appointments attended. That 20, or I guess it would be a 19% delta from our target. How many extra appointments is that?
Well, 20%, you're going to make me do math on the fly.
I am. You were the high GPA at mine. So
oh, man. Yeah, I mean, so we're roughly looking at another 70 appointments.
70.
Close to
70.
Yeah.
Okay. And what's our conversion rate right now?
From our appointments attended to contracts, we're at 19%.
Okay. That's right on industry
It is.
average, which is about 20%.
Yep.
For our model. If you're in person, you can close as high as 35 to 40% if you're in person only, and if you're doing only inbound lead channels. And I've seen as low as 10% roughly if you're doing all outbound and virtual. Maybe even lower than that depending on how wide you're going in your market. Anyways, 70 appointments would be how many contracts?
I redid the math. It's 50 actually. But at 50 appointments just to get to our target. This isn't saying that we're at 100%. This is just to get to our target.
Yeah.
That would be another 10 contracts.
So just from measuring this alone, we should have 10 more contracts right now.
Yes.
Just from that one lever.
Yes.
We're not even talking about other marketing channels. Are we following up with people when we should? Purely just on getting better at setting appointments and confirming appointments. We should have 10 more contracts. Just to hit our target, not even exceed it.
Yes.
Right? That is mind-blowing.
That just shows the opportunity. Now, if you were in a situation where you didn't have the staff to be able to go on that many appointments, that's a different question because then it's how do you rank them? How do you prioritize them? And because of the investment we've made so far in people, we're not in that situation. We have capacity to go on these appointments.
Yeah.
It says everything about our skill.
Well, and this is why it's so important, guys, with the students that I mentor and coach one-on-one privately. You don't even know the levers that you can pull until you start tracking this stuff. You have to track it first. At a bare minimum, you need to be tracking your number of contacts on a daily basis. That's how many correct property owners am I talking to? Your appointments set. Of those, how many people am I setting an appointment with? Your appointments attended. So of the appointments that I set, how many am I actually attending? Your contracts signed, and then your contracts closed. That's it. If you track that stuff, and this is what I tell my students, in our sessions, we have the Google Sheet, right? Because they don't have a fancy CRM or whatever. They just need a free way to track it. They're doing it themselves. It takes 3 minutes a day, tops. I can tell you exactly where your issue is if you just track those things.
And we do that within our business for each employee.
Right. But everybody wants to make it about the new fancy shiny marketing thing and I need to get a better CRM. It's like, no, you need to do the boring work and track the basic stuff.
That's it for us. I mean, our next big lever is what does that allow us to do? So if we get the leading metrics right, we're really dialed in when it comes to urgency with our inbound leads. That allows us then to say, and like you said earlier, have the confidence to reinvest into that next inbound marketing channel. They're expensive. We want to make sure that we're going to capitalize if we're going to make that investment. And you do that by figuring out the top end of the funnel and where our current pinch points are to then produce the revenue required to get the next inbound channel. So that's what we're working on next.
Love it. Again, because this is telling us we can handle more inbound leads right now. We can spend more on marketing. We're going to get the ROI.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else on Q1 we should touch on?
Yeah, I would just say for us, our theme for Q1 was work the cut. So this was a Dr. Kevin Elko. He does a Monday morning cup of inspiration. If you've never searched for it, it just got brought to us by the sales leadership training by Ren Bartlett and Steve Trang.
He's got that southern drawl. He talks about having your cup of joe and getting shit done on a Monday.
He does.
Very entertaining.
It does. It's very entertaining. Messages he's presented are fantastic. And so we picked this one, which is really just about doing the little things, focusing on the one metric that will help you get to the end result. And that's what we've been talking about this whole time. What is the one or two things you can really focus on? And for us right now, it's appointments cancellation rate that will materially change the output and then the revenue downstream.
Love it.
So those are the big things for us in Q1 2024, what we're looking at, what we're tracking, what we're working on.